In this video, I'm going to show you how to install and use the Blender Prometheus add-on. This add-on exposes Prometheus metrics from Blender, which can be used to monitor one or more Blender instances. I got the idea to create this add-on because I sometimes have multiple nodes with Blender doing some rendering, and I didn't want to have to walk to them to see what they were doing. And because I already have Prometheus and Grafana running to monitor other services, I thought it would be convenient to have an add-on that would provide metrics that could be monitored in the same way. The first step is to install the add-on. You can do this by downloading the file blenderprometheus.zip directly from my GitHub repository. The link is in the description. Locate the Blender Prometheus repository, click on the blenderprometheus.zip file, and then right-click the raw button to download it. And remember, where you saved it, you'll need it in the next step. When we switch to Blender, we can select the preferences from the menu and open the add-on section. We click the install button and locate the zip we just downloaded. The add-on will be installed in the system category. Once the add-on is installed, you need to enable it and configure it. The only configuration option is the address and port that the Prometheus metrics will be exposed on. The default address is all zeros and port is 8000. So it will listen on port 8000 on all interfaces of the machine Blender is running on. But you can change this if you want. And it can be changed later too. Note that enabling it may take a bit longer than with other add-ons because this add-on will start a small web server and opening a socket may take some time. Once the add-on is enabled, it will expose several metrics from Blender. These metrics will be exposed on the address and port that you specified in the preferences. So here we use localhost port 8000. And although the metrics are meant to be scraped by Prometheus and visualized by Grafana, you can inspect them directly in your browser to see if it's working. As you can see, the most interesting metrics are Blender render, which will be non-zero when Blender is rendering, and frame counter, which will be incremented for every rendered frame. I might add some other metrics in the future versions of the add-on, but these are the essential ones. If I go off screen and start a short render and keep refreshing the page, you can see the metric changing. Now, exposing metrics is one part, but to use them effectively, you'll need a Prometheus server to scrape them every few seconds or so, and a Grafana server to display them in a dashboard. Both Prometheus and Grafana can be run as Docker containers, and I will share my setup in a moment, but this is the kind of dashboard you can expect. The render is still running and you can see the values change in near real time. As with most Grafana dashboards, you can change the refresh rate and the time range to suit your preferences. I'm not going to show you how to set up Docker or run containers, but I will share the relevant portion of my Prometheus configuration here. The simplest setup without any auto discovery will need a simple section for each Blender node you want to monitor. So in this example, we simply scrape the machine with the address ending in 141 on port 8000 and repeat this every 15 seconds. And that's all that Prometheus needs to know. If we switch to Grafana, we can add a dashboard. As you can see, this Grafana instance is configured to get its information from my Prometheus server. And if we create a new dashboard, we can simply add panels and select available metrics from the drop-down. The Blender render metric is very simple. It's a gauge and it can only be 0 or 1, and you could add this to your dashboard to see if a node is running. But here we just add a panel for the frame counter. A counter only ever goes up, so it isn't very meaningful in itself. But if we apply the rate function to it, if we can find it, we get the number of frames per second. That's often quite a small number, even on fast machines, so multiplying this by 60 will convert it to frames per minute. You can change this to what you think is the most convenient, of course. And also change all kinds of other things to make your dashboard look good, as Grafana is super flexible. And that's all there is to it. Quick recap. If you have multiple Blender nodes, you can monitor all of them if you install the add-on. You just configure Prometheus to scrape the data for each of them, and then Grafana can access this collected data and display graphs in a dashboard. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check the links in the description, and if you have suggestions, make sure to leave them in the comments or in the issues section of the GitHub repository.